Imagine getting up every day full of energy as if you were in your 20s again. What would that be like? What would it be worth to you? What is your health worth to you? Think about it. Your health isn't everything, but without it, everything else is nothing. And yet, too many of us are taking it for granted until something goes wrong. And no one wakes up hoping to be diagnosed with a disease or chronic illness. And yet, we've never been taught how to be proactive in our health through our school or public health. As a registered health coach and integrative health practitioner, I believe it's time this information is made available to everyone. Combining new knowledge around your health and the ability to do my functional medicine lab tests in the comfort of your own home will allow you to optimize your health for today and all your tomorrows. Don't wait for your wake-up call. Welcome back to another episode of the Don't Wait for Your Wake-Up Call podcast. I am here with Jumana today. And Jumana, I'm so excited to have you on the show and have you share your story. Thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you so much, Melissa, for having me on. I'm really excited about this conversation.
And let me introduce you a little bit to the audience, and then I'm going to have you share your story. So Jumana now helps entrepreneur and corporate business leaders feel fulfilled, knowing their life's work creates a meaningful impact while also ensuring they don't end up being irrelevant. She does this through an accelerated business transformation process that connects with the magic of your genius, anchors you into your purpose, and unlocks the flow of freedom, which is part of her life's purpose. Her experience includes both entrepreneurship and working in the corporate world. With her natural ability to spot opportunities to do things better, she supports business leaders who want to thrive amid the significant market shifts we are experiencing as a collective. So that all sounds very business focused on a health and wellness podcast. So my listeners might be going, wait, why is she on this show? But rest assured, keep listening because Jumana's story will answer that question for you as she shares where she started to getting to where she's at today. So I would love to invite you to share your story.
Oh, beautiful, Melissa. Thank you so much. Yeah, if you really, really think about it, your journey really is the key to who and how you're meant to serve in this world, right? And that's just as true for me. So I guess almost 20 years ago now, I had first entered entrepreneurship. And I was young and it was a really great learning experience. But it was feast or famine, and I was having a hard time managing that. And so I was looking for something similar where it was like having my own business, but with the backing of a corporation that just gave me a little bit more consistency and some balance. So around that time, I got, made my venture into corporate. And I was in pharmaceutical sales. So I had a territory that I was responsible for managing. So again, still on the business side, but different in the sense that it was working for a corporation. And so I did that for about 7-8 years. And then I got really, really sick. And mind you, with my background in pharmaceuticals, people in white coats, we have a very much a high regard for them. And we trust them and we view them as an authority. So I had gotten really sick and figured the best thing to do was to go to a doctor and to see what was going on and to see what I could be doing to help me. And I actually ended up going to many doctors and they were like, oh, well, your labs are fine. There's nothing wrong with you. Maybe it's something mental. And at that point in time, I was like, there's no way. I mean, my body was changing. I had no energy and I could not figure out what was going on. And here the experts are telling me that there's nothing they could do for me. So this was my first indication that maybe what I had been doing all along, which really is relying on outside sources to guide me, right? And giving up my authority, because I trusted so much and was quite frankly naive. And at the time, I didn't even know what a GMO was. And mind you, this was literally, we're talking about 10 years ago. So it's not like it was that long ago. But for me, that's how disconnected I was. We're mind, body, soul. And I was probably 90% mind and maybe 10% soul, like literally was not tuned into my body at all. Um, and I just knew I couldn't live like this. And a couple things happened at that time because I knew that I couldn't just take what they were telling me anymore. It also shed light onto how businesses operate, quite frankly. Meaning that as a consumer, we are also very trustful of businesses, thinking that they truly have our best interest at heart. And that was really hit me hard because it's like you go to the grocery store, you're buying certain things. And I was under the impression that if it was sold, it had been vetted and it was safe. And that, now understand there are some things that are going to be better for some people than others, but just in general, I'm in the US and I can tell you here, our soil is extremely depleted. I mean, there's just so many things with agriculture and big food here in the US. And again, I really was so naive and had no clue. So that led me, the realization about businesses and, quite frankly, the lack of integrity in business was an indication that was going to stick with me and lead me to where I ended up today. But at that moment, of course, what was on my plate was for me to get well and get healthy. And that was, in essence, doing everything opposite of what I was told. And
I just want to stop you there for 1 second to just ask you, in that moment when you realized that everything you believed wasn't true, what was that moment like when you came to that realization? Were you mentally fighting like, this can't be so, and it was a bit of a struggle to come to the realization? Or was that a fairly easy aha because it was so obvious to you now that you were sick?
yeah, I mean, I think it was a little bit of both, Melissa. I had to get well, so I didn't have the luxury of dwelling on that,
Right, right,
but it really did stick with me. I mean, because ultimately the reason I was sick was it was lifestyle. It wasn't anything more than that. It was I myself was out of integrity of what works for me,
right.
and so that's when I began the journey. Like, for instance, working out hard for me is very counterproductive to me. It actually backfires. I gain weight. I, get sick. It does not work for me, and around that time, people were very much into CrossFit and things like that. And I had to learn that, because I had been taking in what people were saying and really having to go within and, really making sure that I honored my body and listened to what was good for me and really tune out the noise, quite frankly.
I love that you did that because you're absolutely right. The body always wants to be in balance. And so, too much of a good thing isn't necessarily better. The right amount of a good thing is what we want. But sometimes we get into this mindset, oh, if this is good for me, I should do it more. But over exercising puts stress on the body. It causes the body to break down. The body needs recovery days between weight training sessions. And if we're not giving it that, it's breaking down more and it's actually negatively impacting our health, our immune system, etc., than the right amount of exercise. And so I love that you did realize that you need to tune out the noise. You need to not listen to what you're hearing from everybody else and listen to your body as your guide. And I'm intrigued to find out, how did you even know to do that? How did you know that you had to heal from the inside out and that it was lifestyle factors when all of the doctors didn't know what was wrong, but you knew? How did you figure that out?
So that was the first time I'd heard of like a health coach. I had never even thought about that. And I was just looking online. I was desperate. I'm like, I know I cannot be the only one in this situation. I know that there are people that can help. And I'm a firm believer in know what you're good at and know when to outsource, right?
Yeah.
And this was an area that I was just starting to dip my toes in and knew I was not in a position to experiment for too long, right? Like it's one thing because as we say, health is wealth, and I was not able to function on a day-to-day level. It was such a struggle for me. So I found a health coach who really, like, I remember I did like a hair mineral analysis, and that was like my first entryway into that. And then the second health coach I hired, she was more a women's health coach, like
Mhm.
for hormonal balance. And that was also extremely helpful to me. And in fact, after I worked with her, and I don't think she takes one-on-one people anymore, but her name is Nicole Jardin. She's a big player in the women's health space. And again, this was like 2014. After working with her, I actually got my health coaching certification from IIN because it was really not so much for me to be a health coach, but it was a way for me to learn and understand more about the body. It just unlocked this area of interest for me and this area of, such a knowing that it was so important to really understand and connect with. And I just wanted to know as much as I could. And that's when I started to understand like the bio individuality and how why one thing may be good for one person is not necessarily good for another. And I think it's important, to understand too that there are so many different modalities, like even working out. Like you can still get the cardio, but you don't have to do it in the CrossFit form, So it's just like finding out what flow your body wants and what feels good and what makes it thrive, you
I
know?
love that you went to IIN and that, you had the curiosity to learn more because you had been so indoctrinated in the pharmaceutical and the doctor, mainstream medical world, and you weren't getting your answers there. And you kept looking and you were open to other modalities. And that took you down the path of becoming a health coach in order to enhance your own healing because you would learn what your body needed. And my mentor always says a health coach in every house. That's his mission, is to have a health coach in every house because we truly can change the health of the world if we get to that place. And I love that you did that for yourself. That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it was such a beautiful experience. And, what I got out of my whole health journey is the body is a neutral messenger.
Mm-hmm.
And always communicating with us, and it really is up to us to take the time to feel in and listen and honor that message. And so it was a few years before I started to really feel better and be able to function more normally, but so much shifted for me too, meaning I didn't go back to normal, in the way I was before, right? You can't. I mean, once you are educated and once you learn, once you understand, to go back would be such a sin, because you're just going to end up right back where you were, right?
Yeah, because there's no
So
alignment between what you know and then what you're selling in your work, right? And when you don't have that alignment, that starts to create a discord within your body, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, that then negatively impacts the physical. And as you say, you end up right back where you started.
totally. And I also mean like my schedule wasn't as hectic, like I
Yeah.
honored that my body, needed a little bit more rest.
Yes.
And also, I was filtering out not just the diet, but overall the lifestyle, the information that I was ingesting, the people that I was around. And to your point, Melissa, then things start that you assume fit start to kind of jiggle out of place a little bit and don't feel like they fit anymore. And that was happening with me in my career. And so we're talking now about, 2018, 2017, 2018, 2019. But it was a good gig for me, quite frankly. I mean, I had a lot of flexibility, a lot of autonomy, and I was really good at what I did because it was very clinical and it wasn't as quote unquote salesy as you would expect because it was in the realm of oncology. And that's definitely more of like a clinical discussion. But still, in general, with the industry, there was some misalignment that I was feeling, especially with the education that I had just gone through, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it was also, quite frankly, golden handcuffs, I mean, and honestly, like it took a while for me to listen to the whispers. And that's okay. I don't judge myself for that. Everybody has their own journey, and it was a learning experience for me too. And I honor that. There's no wrong thing, right? Especially when you end up eventually honoring yourself, right? But
Yes.
the key, ideally, you do it earlier than later, right?
Yes.
And ideally, and some of us may take a little bit longer than others. And again, that's okay. The point is not to judge. The point is once you feel that, honor that and move forward with that versus fighting it. And that's what happened. Eventually, COVID hit, and in the US, like probably many of your listeners are from this area, from North America. I mean, there was a big shift that happened. And certain things were encouraged. And after the education that I had just experienced and underwent, it just didn't seem like it aligned with what I understood health to be. And that's when the whispers became really loud. And I knew I needed to make a decision. And to be honest, I was clinging for a while. And then eventually, because I didn't know what was going to be next, and like I say this, when I looked ahead, it was dark. But when I felt into staying, it didn't feel good. And
Right.
eventually walking into the unknown was just felt so much better than staying into a place that I knew I did not fit into anymore, you know?
And, no surprise that you were clinging. That was a great job. It served you. You enjoyed it. And it was a paycheck. So there's comfort in that. And I just want to say to the listeners and to you, like, congratulations for choosing you over all of that comfort. Because our brain is designed to keep us safe. And it wants to keep us in our comfort zone because it knows that we're safe there because we're alive. And when we try to step out of it, that's when our body starts giving us those little butterflies or those little questioning thoughts. Am I good enough? Can I do this? Because it's your brain trying to keep you in that comfort zone where it knows it can keep you safe. If your brain doesn't know where you're going, because you don't yet know where you're going, it doesn't know if it can keep you safe. And so that is very uncomfortable feeling too. And a lot of people will shy away from it. You didn't. You chose to move into the unknown and step away from that comfort. And now you found a new comfort zone, which is still probably temporary because there's more learning and there's more progression, and there will be another new comfort zone as you go along.
Absolutely.
And so kudos to you. And I encourage the listeners, if you're feeling stuck in a job and torn and should I or shouldn't I, the fact that you're even having those internal debates is a clue that you should.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I want to piggyback on what you said, because yeah, we think that paycheck keeps us safe. But if, something out of our control happens and that paycheck no longer is there, that tells you how unsafe you really are, right? I
Yes.
mean, we're relying on something external, right? And I know I walked away by choice, but there are a lot of people that feel like it wasn't their choice. But in reality, the way I choose to look at these kinds of scenarios is that's because that was not meant for us anymore. And
Yes.
it's really time to look at a different path. A lot of times we are so fixated because this is what we know. We stick to what we know. But as soon as the tunnel vision opens up, that's when the possibilities open up.
Yes.
And you start
Absolutely.
yeah, you start to see things that you couldn't have even thought about before because you weren't in that place. You were so fixated on clinging or holding on, or, this is all I know. I can't imagine what else I could do. And it is scary. I'm not saying it isn't. There definitely is an element of trust and belief, even
Mhm.
more important. Just understanding that we are meant for so much more than we pigeonhole ourselves into,
Absolutely.
you know? And it's
Absolutely.
for me to put my mouth where, all along what I had been saying, yes, I believe, everything happens for a reason and all this kind of stuff. And now I was living it. And this is why I needed to experience it that
And I've had that experience that you're talking about. In 2015, I was let go with, 24 years of service, big fish buys little fish, an hour to clear out my desk, no word of thanks. And in the moment, it feels like the worst thing ever. And yet, when I look back, because that's almost 9 years ago now, that I look back at that with gratitude because I would have never gone into health and wellness if that hadn't happened. And when I was let go, I had no idea what I was going to do next. But I was open to being guided, to following my intuition. And it led me into this career that is my purpose. It is my calling. And I think that's what many people find after coming through being let go, that it allows them to go into their true purpose. I needed all of that to get me to where I'm at today. And all of the skill sets I developed through past jobs, etc., I still use. But and very quickly I knew I had landed in what I was always supposed to do.
Totally. I love the phrase, things happen for
Yes.
us.
Not
And
to.
yes, and it's just that little shift, but it is huge.
It
It
is.
is huge. And I'm not going to say it's always easy. I'm not. I mean, even though I'm the one that walked away, there was still this victimhood mentality that I had to, quite frankly, experience, and then eventually it fell away. And that's okay. I was grieving. I was in this, I've been 17 years, just like you. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. So these are important to honor, and there is a reason for it, right? And I'll tell you, I hated it. I couldn't wait to be done with it, but at the same time, like, I knew I needed to experience it and be in it. It was important.
Yes, you have to move through the pain to come out the other side with the wisdom and the vision as to what you're going to do next.
Totally.
It's just
Totally.
important to move through it and not stay stuck in it with your head down, talking yourself out of every next opportunity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, I did debate. I knew I was going to have my own business. I didn't quite know what it was going to be. And I was like, I guess I should just get a job till I figure it out. And so I was interviewing too.
Mm-hmm.
But I was having panic attacks. And that was my body telling me, no, like, this is not something that feels good to you right now. For me, I'm not saying this is for everybody, and I was able to find resources to help me manage through that time period. But for me, it wasn't meant that I went back to work. Many people, it's in their best interest, or they're in a place where they are working for somebody else and then eventually feel like they can leave, or they get something to secure themselves while they launch their business. And everybody has a different path. There's no right or wrong. And for me, that was just not the way that my soul wanted to be, because I feel that there was this risk that I could get comfortable again.
Right.
If and that was just me. Again, this is simply me. There's no right or wrong. And because I interviewed for a few months, and, and the interviews all went well. It was just, I knew I would pull out at the end or something, because I just was like, this just isn't working.
Well, and just for you to know the
You
risk
know?
that you would get comfortable again is really powerful, because you were now in a place where you didn't want to stay sitting in your comfort zone, camped there forever. You had your own your mind opened up in one area of life and thrived on that learning. And now you're like, what more can I learn? And every stage of the way that you're learning, you're stepping out of that comfort zone.
Absolutely.
And that's absolutely beautiful. And again, congratulations to you for figuring that out and choosing that path for yourself.
I mean, my soul wouldn't let me have it any other way. It's like, no, you're not.
And now you've fully recovered your health?
Yeah, I mean, I will say this, thankfully, because I was healthier, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
health is a constant, like it takes
Yes,
effort.
it
Right?
does.
Never gonna reach like a pinnacle and be done. It's something that you have to expend energy for and have that desire. And for me, it's a passion. Health is, I mean, it's definitely a very strong pillar of focus for me.
Mm-hmm.
But because I was healthier, going through that really challenging and stressful time, it was so much easier. I mean, if that had happened earlier on, I don't know where I would have ended up. I could have ended up hospitalized or all sorts of things because I just did not have the physical stamina at that time. But because of the focus that I take and I spend on my body and my health, that really, really helped me during that challenging time.
Absolutely. I love to say your health is your greatest asset because if you don't have your health, you can't do anything else. You can't run your business from a sick bed. You can't go to work from your sick bed, et cetera, et cetera. So I love that you realized that and focused on it. And then that allowed you to, get through that major transition in your life. And, now you're standing here talking to me and you do have energy and, you've regained, everything that you'd lost previously when you weren't coping and you were going to doctors and they were asking for help, right? Now you can live a full, vital life. And you're right, your health is always a process. It ends when we pass to the next life. And up until that point, it always needs to be a focus. And sometimes it's going to be better than others. But when we focus on it and we're proactive on it, we can live a full and vibrant life. So I absolutely love that you're in that place now. And now you have your own business. And I would love you to share a little bit more about what you are doing now.
Yeah, so it's interesting how I even fell into this, right? Because during my health journey, I began working with a medical intuitive, and her name is Lindsay Diamond. She had encouraged me to take a course from her mentor, Lori Wilson. Both are Canadian, on business intuition, and I took that class, and it unlocked part of my golden thread. And when I say golden thread, it's really golden alchemy thread is the term that I like to use, but golden thread for short. We all have these gifts and we are meant to be in service with these gifts. These are why we come to this in this life with these gifts. And we all have our own unique set. And this unlocked part of my golden thread. And in alignment with the business, going back to what I mentioned earlier about 10 years ago, noticing these businesses not operating in integrity. When I took that business intuition course, I was very clear, this is what I'm here to do. This is what I'm here to help with. We are seeing a big shift happening in business. It started before COVID, but it began amplified during COVID. People started to realize that there was a disconnect from what they were being told, what they were being told to do, and who to trust and what to trust. And so there's a shift happening in business where people are not buying from the same businesses that they've spent, so much of their money and loyalty with, right? And I know I mentioned big corporations, and so I work with both entrepreneurs as well as corporate. And in the entrepreneurial space, there still can be lack of integrity. It's usually unintentional. It's because entrepreneurs may be struggling. They don't know who their target market is. They don't know
Right.
what they're here to do and how they're here to serve. So really, what I help, just like for me, my healing journey with my body, is helping businesses come into alignment through integrity. because we all have certain things that work for us and certain things that just don't, right? And so, what I do in my work now, I access the business's energy. So, I believe every business has a consciousness. I call it
Mm-hmm.
conscious business, essentially the soul of the business, a blueprint of the business, just like we also have our own blueprint. And I access that energy. And it could be a formed business. It could be a business that's not formed yet. It doesn't matter. When I'm accessing that business, I'm also able to access the leaders that are running the business. And I use business leaders because, like in corporate, most of the time, the leaders in corporate are not the founders, right? In the entrepreneurial space, they tend to be, but not always, right? It
Mm-hmm.
just depends. But in general, because sometimes you're working with another business and you're not necessarily the founder, but you have your own business. So in any event, this is really, my gift and how I'm serving is really using energetics. So my containers are a blend of the ethereal and the practical. So we really go into who are you meant to serve? How are you meant to serve? Why are you serving? So we focus on the purpose for both the business as well as the business leaders and get into alignment, get those two energies into alignment. And this way, you're able to be very clear on who your target audience is, what you're here to, whether it's a service or a product, and even the best way to market that from your integrity. So ultimately, what comes out of that is what I call the business treasure map, so that the business is operating from this place of magnetism rather than competition, scarcity, and fear, which we see especially in the larger businesses. But again, unintentionally, a lot of entrepreneurs are in that space too. So that's really what I'm here to do, is to serve during the shift that's happening in business. And this shift it's still just beginning, probably at least another 20 years. So yeah, that was a lot.
Well, I love that you're doing that. And you're right. It's probably going to take another 20 years because there's so much opportunity to bring businesses into a place of integrity, as you say. And I know, my choice of where I buy from has changed in the last 8 years since I got out of corporate and learned what I've learned. And I want to be supporting those businesses that are in integrity themselves and in alignment with what I know and my beliefs, et cetera, and not be dependent on, big box
Yes,
suppliers that aren't in integrity in what they're
absolutely.
offering. And there is so much competition and scarcity because they're just, rolling back the prices and just trying to beat each other over price point rather than know that there's enough customers for everyone out there. Find your customer, find your client, and you will be able to magnetize them to you when you're in integrity. So I love that you're doing that. That's who I would like to be buying from and where I would like to be spending my money.
Absolutely. And magnetism doesn't mean you go sit on a beach and people are going to come to you. It means operating from your thread, operating in your lane. And if you want to expand, and you expand because you just want, more money or whatever, it doesn't mean that it's not going to work, but it's not going to be the maximum potential because it's not in alignment. So when you do want to expand and it's not from your lane, that's really where collaboration comes into place,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of looking at it from a competition standpoint, you look at it as, let's honor everybody's differences. We're all here to serve differently. And the more we honor that in ourselves first, the more we are in a position to honor that outside of us. And that's why we see so much division outside now, because there's a handful of people that are really trying to say that we all have to be a certain way. And that's just not how we were created. There is such beauty in our uniqueness. And that's really what I want to help bring out in through business. And to me, when we monetize our gifts, that is just a way to expand the reach of our gifts. So there's no reason why you shouldn't be in a position where you're in abundance and prosperity. This scarcity mindset that some entrepreneurs may have is a no-no. But at the same time, these larger corporations, they're viewing a lot of their consumers as a means for profit and power. And that's also a no-no,
Yeah.
right? So it's just a matter of honoring that we are all here to do certain things. And if we can stay in that lane, that is our golden thread. And that is where that abundance and prosperity flows. And the other thing I want to say is our golden thread doesn't always fully reveal itself, at all times. There are certain experiences that we have to go through, and then different things are unlocked. So we are constantly growing, and so there is a shift. So just exactly as you said to me earlier, like, I'm here now, but I know I'm going to end up somewhere else down the line. Not to say that I'm going to veer too much off from what I'm doing now, but in different ways. And same thing with you. Your business has evolved. And I see you, Melissa, and I honor you because I know you are fully in integrity and you are such an inspiration because of that.
Well, thank you. And I'm just really grateful that I allowed myself to be guided into this place and chose to follow that guidance in order to be in integrity. And integrity is really important to me. I walk my talk because how can I ask somebody else to do something if I won't do it first? Right. And so that's really important to me. And I also want to, I can't remember who said this quote, but you just reminded me of it as you were talking. And that was, you can have everything you want in life as long as you help others get what they want. And I think that's what's key, that, those bigger retailers, it is all about let's make more profit, and it's all about the shareholder return, etc. But if they actually looked at it from the perspective of let's help others get what they want, they could actually do so much more in a far more positive way. And that's true for entrepreneurs as well. So I love that you mentioned that. And I can't remember who said that quote, but I do love that quote. So thank you for sharing all of that. And I would love to ask you, I know you very generously offered a free gift. If you can share that free gift and also share how people can get hold of you if somebody, is listening and is an entrepreneur or in business and would like to hire you.
Oh, wonderful. Yes, thank you so much, Melissa. Yeah, if you go onto my website, which is jumanainc.com, you can sign up and you will get my intentional alignment meditation. And just to briefly go over that concept, it really is about plugging into the intentional alignment for the day so that we're moving with the flow rather than against the current. And really honoring that if something doesn't go right, there's a reason for it. Look at it as a blessing. So it's a short 2-minute meditation. And I know there are some days I do it multiple times a day because I'm a little wound up and I'm like, okay, I need to get back centered. And it's not just for people in business. I mean, I do think it's very helpful for people in business too, but it could be for anybody. And then in addition, if anybody's interested in a session with me, I gave your listeners a code, your guided health journey, a 10% off code, which they can redeem when they check out.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for both of those gifts and your generosity. I really appreciate it. And as we wrap up, I love to ask my guests, what does "don't wait for your wake-up call" mean to you?
Well, the more in a hole you are, right? It's going to be a lot harder and take longer to get out. But at the same time, I mean, I do know we all have our own journeys and there's a reason for it all. But obviously, the earlier you start, the easier it's going to be. I mean, my recovery took years. And, not everybody has that luxury, right? I mean, depending on what is happening with you physically, not everybody has years. I know for me, it took a long time. And that was okay. And that worked for me. But we're mind, body, soul, and we cannot, act like one of them doesn't exist. And I was guilty of that for a long time.
I love that. And I also want to add in that, yes, the deeper you are in the hole, the longer it takes to heal. But I also want to point out that the time that it takes to heal is still far less than the time it took to get where you got to. And that's the
Yes.
beautiful thing about our body's ability to heal. When we create the environment for it to start doing so, it's actually relatively quick compared
Yes.
to the amount of time that you've been treating your body in such a way that it's been on a downhill slide. So,
Absolutely. I think you nailed it, Melissa. I mean, that is so key. And the other thing is that, healing isn't always linear either.
nope, not.
I mean, and that's something that, and I guiltily took that for granted too. Sometimes you feel really bad, even though you're on your way, because your body's detoxing or experiencing other symptoms. So the other thing is to really have grace during that
Yes.
journey.
Yes. Love that. Is there anything else you would like to share with the audience as we wrap up this episode?
My mission, my goal is to have everybody really just honor their own uniqueness and shine their light as bright as they can in this world. And that's the mission that I'm focusing on specifically through business. But I think it's important for all of us. We are so much more than we realize. And I understand, we look at things through filters, right? Through filters of our life experience, through filters of what people tell us we are, what we're not. But this is where you tune in and you honor and you trust. You trust that you are here for a reason and you matter and we need you. We need everybody's uniqueness to shine bright.
I love that. And I say those words myself many, many times. So thank you so much for reiterating them. People need to hear them many different times and in many different ways from many different people before they sink in. So thank you so much, Jumana, for your time coming on to this podcast, sharing your story, where you came from, where you're at now, and inspiring my audience to know that they too can heal whatever they're going through now. Their body can heal and they can get to a place where they're thriving in their life again, as you are. So thank you for being an exemplary example of that.
It's an honor, Melissa. Thank you so much.
And to my audience, thank you for tuning in each and every week. And if you know someone that needs to be inspired by Jumana's story, please share this episode with them. Are you a practitioner or a coach listening to this? If so, I would love to ask you, do you use hypnotherapy in your practice working with clients? And if not, would you like to? The power of hypnotherapy is limitless. And so often we experience our clients struggling to reach their goals. It's because they're coming up against their own brick walls and getting stuck. But you can help them through the power of hypnosis break through all of that, working with their unconscious mind to put the suggestions in, to have them taking the action to achieve the results that they want. They are thrilled with your coaching techniques. They're getting the results they want. You feel amazing because you are helping your client get the results they want. It's a win-win. And another win is that it's an added revenue stream for you in your business. So if you like the feel of helping your clients get the results they want, if you like the sound of that, then definitely reach out, Melissa at yourguidedhealthjourney.com, or click the Linktree link below for my Unlimited Power of Hypnosis class to learn more. It's a weekend designation program that I teach, valid in 42 countries. You write an exam after taking the experiential course, and you can be admitted to the American Board of Hypnotherapy and start using hypnotherapy one-to-one with your clients and have them achieving the results they want.